as a founding member of CORE with Jennifer, I think part of the reason that it may look to you as if we're not asking enough for more money. We want more money. But I find that when I go to my students and say, we need higher taxes, we need to put more money into the university, when I talk to people in the community, they often have a sense that the money that is going into the system isn't being spent as effectively as it could be. I've been here for 10 years. The number of classes I taught, or students I taught when I first got here, was about 25 to 35 students per class. And I could spend a lot of time, give them a lot of writing assignments, do a lot of research projects. Now I teach 3 classes a term. I regularly have 60 students in those classes. And I find that the quality of the education that I'm able to provide just isn't the same by virtue of the fact that I'm swamped with all of the grading that I have to do. And I loved your example, Ben, of that aha moment. As a teacher, it's really hard to get that across. Like, you can say biographers fall in love with their subjects, and students kind of look out the window. If you're writing it down in an online course, you can bet they're not going to get it. It takes a certain atmosphere, a certain kind of magic that takes place in the classroom where students are relaxed, they respect and trust one another, the professor is relaxed, for that epiphany to take place. And I'm finding at Portland State that I'm just getting squeezed to such an extent that it's harder and harder for me to create that kind of atmosphere in my classroom. So I look at the amount that's going into new administrators and the amount that goes into the surplus, and I just think, if we could just put more of that money into the classroom to allow us to do our job as well as we could, then I would feel better about going to taxpayers and saying, you need to invest in higher education too. So it feels as if we need to be fighting this on both levels. And I'm curious how with the kind of new education board, SB 242, we can continue to maintain a voice for faculty and students at the state level to make sure that statewide an emphasis on quality education takes place, not just at the university level, but also at community colleges and other kinds of campuses.
Okay. I can't not jump in on that. Samuel asked the question, how do we know that we have quality now? And I would argue that in a lot of ways, we don't have quality, actually, as much quality as we should have, and as you suggest, as we once had. One of the problems with our current system of funding is, it's designed to bring more and more people into the system. And over the years, without the overall increasing funding, what that's meant is that more and more of the instruction has been delegated, not relegated, delegated to part-time faculty, to adjunct faculty, who are just not, because of their circumstances, because they're teaching at multiple schools, they're trying to cobble lives together, they can't be there for the students as much as somebody who's here full-time. They can't be integrated in those extracurricular kinds of activities, the advising work, the work with the service organizations and the other out-of-class opportunity experiences that I mentioned. More and more of the instruction is being moved in that degree, in that way, and I think that students are suffering as a result. I would have to believe that there are quality implications and that there are success implications tied to that. And if we can find a model that where funding is going to create incentives for student success, then maybe that is the way to deal with this problem. Because if we just keep opening up new sections taught by people brought in at the last minute as part-timers, I just see quality becoming increasingly diluted within the system.
I want to stir the pot on this point just a little bit. So one of the things that I think is important and unique about the Portland State place and experience is that we, on the other side equation. We have this incredible opportunity, given our place, to tap into expertise that's beyond the walls of the institution. So I would also say, and I agree this needs to be done in a thoughtful, planful, deliberate way, that we can benefit by experts in so many fields in the local area. I mean, I think about engineers, I think about artists, I think about experts in their fields locally who have something to contribute and want to have a teaching experience. So that's the other side of this coin, right? Is how to leverage those incredible opportunities that expand our teaching base in meaningful ways that expand the student experience. So somewhere in there, I think, is the right balance where we're able to leverage that expertise and that talent because of where we sit. And I'm very sensitive to the questions of classroom size, although I was lucky to find on my way over here that the average undergraduate classroom at Portland State in fall of 2010 was 29 students. So we could look over time at how that has evolved, but we also need to appreciate that, sometimes, and this was certainly my experience as an instructor, I was the victim of my own success, right? So I might have started with small classrooms that grew because they were popular classes. And I think that there's a really important conversation that to be had about how we balance the talents and the gifts that our adjunct and fixed-term faculty can bring to us against the real need to maintain tenure lines. And we're fortunate to have had a provost who added 25 new tenure lines in the last couple of years. That was a key piece of his commitment to the institution, and we've benefited from that. So it's a complicated story.
Yeah, but go ahead. You're first.
Call it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, I think this move towards an outcomes-focused funding system actually creates a real opportunity for you with your perspective. And I say that because it requires us, it will require the state and the Education Investment Board to establish what are the core purposes of education and then put the dollars behind those. What are the core purposes, what are the core outcomes that we're trying to achieve? And align the dollars with them. That is the notion behind establishing a 0 through 20 Education Investment Board. There is a risk that we get the outcomes wrong, right? If we prioritize certain things over others and they're the wrong things.
How do you make that aha moment an outcome? Like that's my question. Because that really is what's valuable in education. It's valuable to you, it's valuable to me. But I don't know how you define that or how you can tally that into some kind of metric.
Yeah, I think it's a hard question, and I think we have, at the policy level, we have only pretty blunt tools at this point for getting at them, but they're not completely ineffective. And things like completion to degree or certificate appear to matter, right? Why is it that that there is, under the current system, there is not sufficient incentive for a community college or university to provide the upper level courses to help keep the students enrolled. The upper level courses that are more expensive to operate because they have to do smaller classes. There's not sufficient incentive to get the students to completion. What if we were rewarding universities and community colleges better for bringing students to completion of degree? Is that the aha moment? No, but I would suggest it might make it more likely that a student winds up in a smaller classroom with the type of environment that you describe in a kind of setting that makes it more likely that moment occurs.
I guess I also want to just bring it back to the student perspective as well, that you're feeling scrunched in really large classrooms, and I think we need to look into the numbers because there might be some disagreement, but you can guess and maybe anecdotally experience that aha moments happen in smaller classrooms and happen with more faculty. And I just want to bring us back to, I know we do need to look outside of metrics sometimes, but we need to go back to the budget. And we have students around the state saying tuition's too high now. Right? So in our experience, students are paying more and getting less, the same way that you're trying to teach more and being able to provide less by having these larger classrooms and less experiences one-on-one, or able to help students do writing. And so I just want to bring it back to, we're looking for solutions, and I know that students across the state are not going to be willing to be the solution when it comes to additional tuition increases, and we have students calling for tuition decreases and tuition ceilings. And so I just want to say that, you know, in this state right now, we're faced with an education or a generation of students who are less educated than the previous generation. So students who are not being college educated as much as our parents or grandparents, and we used to pay 1/3 of the cost of education and are now paying 2/3 of the cost. So as we continue to have these discussions about what are those outcomes, just let's go back to the budget, and we do have to make arguments, as Jim was saying, with everyone at the table, and everyone willing to say that we need a more educated populace, no matter what. But I just don't want it to kind of not be out there and be said that often it gets put back on the backs of students and Oregon families. And then I'm not going to make a comment right now because I might derail us entirely, but the gentleman's question in the back was about for-profit colleges, and so, that should be a conversation as well.
Actually, your question on it was an aha moment on the purpose of what I read on the website. So what you just said now, I think I understand. So that was helpful. I think Ben's comment about helping, you know, working with the investment board and the governor's office to get it right so that the core mission of education is served would be one vehicle. As I'm looking at our current higher ed bill, which I'm remembering, I'm not sure that is the best vehicle, because it's hard for us to get into to get to know enough, I use the word micromanage, but to know enough about what the individual institutions, how they're making those budget allocations. You know, we're volunteers, we have 7 universities, and it's really hard for us to get to that level that I'm not saying it's not important, but I'm just not sure that's the best vehicle. But we have 2 faculty members that are on the higher ed board who try to make sure that we understand it's through the faculty that we serve the students, and to keep that in mind. And so I'm not saying we couldn't do more, because I think we probably could. But the other comment I wanted to make is, and I don't think it's going to happen in 2012, but then the next question is, okay, if we go to this, when we go to the investment board controlling the money with performance compacts, are there local boards that do have that knowledge and expertise? And that question, you know, we really is just being grappled with. I think we may have a little more time to get to it, because maybe 2013 instead of 2012. That, if that happens, you know, that would be an appropriate place, you know, to make sure that there's input that this could happen in addition to the